So my friends, welcome to a new crypto update video. Bitcoin is currently at 110,500 US dollars. Over the weekend, we actually hit a new low, at least on Friday at 103,300 US dollars. And since then, we've climbed back up about $7,000. The last few days haven't looked too bad at all. But it also has to be said that it was the weekend. There was very, very little volume in the market. And of course, due to this massive sell-off in the wick that has now been filled on many exchanges, at least if we look at the spot charts, the wick has now been filled. We still have quite a bit to make up for on the upside. Whether this is now a bullish sign and how the week will ultimately continue, we'll definitely take a look at that in today's update video. In addition, there are 1 or 2 exciting news items coming out this week. Despite the shutdown, we'll of course cover those as well, and we'll also take a look at the stock markets. So make sure to stay tuned until the end. Before we get started here, as always, feel free to give the video leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and if you haven't already, feel free to check out the free Telegram talk and Signal group. There you'll always get the latest information. Even when I launch new bots or anything else, you'll get the info there right away. So just sign up using the link below in the video description or in the comments section, and if you're still looking for an exchange where you can trade all of this, feel free to register with my partner exchange, SpinGigs. At the moment, you can secure up to 11,500 USDT in bonuses, and there are also some cool promotions going on right now. Just click on Rewards Hub each time, and then you can register there daily. And if you're not there yet, feel free to use the link in the video description below as well. So yeah, Bitcoin at 110,600 US dollars. So things actually haven't been looking too bad in the last few hours. Over the weekend, or now overnight, we managed to get past the first resistance here. That was the first small hurdle. But in my opinion, the bigger hurdle is coming up right here, because we also have an inefficiency here. We have a thicker supply zone here. And if we turn on the vectors, we can also see that there's still a large red vector candle here. That's going to be a bit of an anchor point for me. And then especially now, since the Asia session has basically, should have just closed or will close in the next few hours, created a larger gap here, between $107,000 and just under $110,500. That will be the range for this week that we need to keep an eye on very, very closely. And there, we will also orient ourselves accordingly. Otherwise, if we manage to get above that, this is point number 1. If we manage to get above 112,000 US dollars, meaning above the supply and above the vectors, my next target, and actually even a strategic target, would be up here at 119,000 to 121,000. On the one hand, the funding rates are still relatively reasonable. They increased over the weekend, which isn't necessarily a particularly good sign at this point, because as we said on weekends, we actually want to see more of a sideways phase. We don't have any market makers, etc. on site, or rather in the market, who could manipulate the whole thing. On weekends, it's usually just retail traders involved. That's point number 1, which is why I could imagine that we might see another small pullback, at least into the area of 108,000 US dollars, before continuing the move upward. Point number 2, we currently have massive liquidations to the upside. So the liquidations start roughly at 115 up to about 118,000, 119,000 US dollars, and then you know exactly what I just said. My sell zone, or rather, the key zone is up here, roughly between 118,000 and 120,000 US dollars. Up here is the inefficiency. If we just move this box over, you might remember this was already a sell zone for us before, but it wasn't reached, and back then the golden pocket was also right here. So we just shifted the sell zone a bit further over and placed it here simply because the liquidations here are extremely high. We also have an inefficiency here, vectors, etc., and so on. And that would still be the bearish option, as crappy as it sounds. We go up, so we've now come down from the all-time high down into the 103 range. We go up again towards 119, 120. That was just a B correction. And the C would then take us towards 95 to 89,000 or even 87,000 US dollars. You might remember this zone down here. We've discussed it repeatedly over the past few months in the live streams. This is a zone that really matters. If we're below 100,000, I'm bearish anyway. But this here is really the very, very, very last chance for Bitcoin to pull something off, because if this zone breaks, then it's probably hello bear market. Then I've got a lot to talk about today, I can already tell. There's also an important event coming up this week. And as I already mentioned in the live stream yesterday, it's strange. There's a shutdown in the US and normally no labor market data is provided. But apparently, not only is it 5 days before the October 29th Fed meeting, but it's also the first time consumer price index data will be reported on a Friday since January 2018. That means the CPI data will apparently be released on Friday, and that's despite the shutdown. Strange coincidence. And then yesterday we also looked at the data for that. The WPI data, the core rate is expected to remain the same, but still, the core rate itself is supposed to rise by 0.3%. And if we look at the WPI data year on year, it's expected to go up from 2.9 to 3.1. Whether it's really a good thing for them to be released now is definitely up for debate. We'll see how that turns out in the end. But as I said, it would fit very, very well if we possibly climb up here until Thursday or Friday and then get bearish news. As I said, the next few hours will somewhat determine how the range develops here and also how the US market opens. And then I'm curious to see what this week brings. Let's move over to Ethereum. I think we've talked enough about Bitcoin for now. Let's move on to Ethereum. Things actually don't look too bad at the moment now that we've found our low down here at 3,674. We're now right back in the golden pocket here. We need to get above that, so we need to at least get above $4,050, if not even $4,160. After we went short up here, there was this sell-off. No lower low, which is a positive sign. That means we could possibly be in a 1, 2, 3 wave here, which would mean the next price targets, don't be alarmed, would actually be between $5,200 and $5,700. In my opinion, that's a bit too exaggerated, so let's remove that for now. What's important is to first get above these resistance levels and then take it step by step. Also, keep an eye on the 200-day SMA that's currently running here. So it's not looking bad. My long position is still running. The short is also still open, but I think by now I've already taken out about 25 or 50% at this point. Let's move over to Solana. Same story here. We haven't made a lower low, which means our bullish scenario is still theoretically in play. We had our ABC, and then I talked about how we didn't manage to make a higher high here, but instead just another lower high. That means this could potentially be the D, because it also went perfectly into the golden pocket. And then we had another sell-off into our buy zone at $174, but the zone held, so our bullish scenario would still be in play right now. But here's the big but. We have to at least break through the $213 mark here. That means this former D needs to be broken to the upside so that we have a chance to reach $232 to $250 at this point. Let's take a quick look at the funding rates for the altcoins, especially for Solana at this point, just to see what the market sentiment is like here. We can see that, okay, the funding rates are partly negative. They're slowly turning positive, but the majority of the market is still positioned short. That means the chance that we'll move up again here is very, very high. But then this resistance also needs to be broken at this point. So let's move on to the Forex markets now. Not much is really happening. So the short is still running. It was almost stopped out, but it's still ongoing for the euro. Then gold managed to have a correction. But to be honest, we have reached all our targets here. You might remember our targets were up here at around $4,369 to $4,606. That would have been the big wave 3. We've reached that by now. We even got to $4,383. So we actually overshot the target a bit. Then there was the first smaller correction, or well, from the top down it was a 5% drop at one point. That's okay. But now, after this upward movement, I would actually like to see a bigger correction here. That means at least somewhere down here in the area of at least $3,850, if not even $3,700. And from there, start a new rally, possibly with a wave 5 or even a larger one, which could then take us toward $5,000. Silver, same story. There was also a bigger correction yesterday, or rather on Friday, of 7%. It has recovered again, but here too, all our targets have now been reached. We're still deep in the sell zone up here. I'm waiting for a pullback. Only when the pullback comes, then I'll log back in. Shorting here is just way too risky for me at this point. So then, yes, traditional markets, dark still in the range. So short, if you caught it at the top, it went really, really well. Let's also take a quick look at how much it's currently up at this point. It was 3%. We took the first take profit plus stop loss at entry. The thing is just running. We're not doing anything else with it for now. Dow Jones, yes, consolidation. I'm definitely very, very curious to see how the US markets will open today, whether bullish or bearish. As I said, with the CPI data, we actually still have a shutdown, but the CPI data is still coming out, which I really don't like at this point. But apparently they have to, because next week is the Fed interest rate decision, so that's also coming up. I'm curious to see what happens. Otherwise, the S&P 500 is also at a stable level. Our sell zone is still active at this point. It was only just exceeded, and then this dump happened. It doesn't look too bad yet, I have to say, but you just have to be careful. Also with the Nasdaq, we still have a massive resistance area up here between 25,000 and 25,200 points. I'm curious to see if we'll get another major liquidity grab up here before crashing down. So for Bitcoin and the stock markets, things actually look pretty similar. We could see a slightly higher high everywhere for Bitcoin, at least 119, 120 before making the turnaround. As for Circle, I was asked about that as well. Scenario B seems to be a bit more active at the moment. That means towards $118. We're not far from that anymore. That would be my next major buy zone. But it should also be said that we still don't have a lower low here. So the 2 is still possible, meaning this could just be a longer consolidation. That fits, and last but not least, D-Wave, a bigger dump at this point. So here too, there was a pullback on Friday, or rather Thursday, 23% drop. But if we think about where we came from here, really from $17, $18, then we had a price increase of 173% here. So, pullback. Now let's wait and see how the price stabilizes here in the end, or whether we make a lower low here. Then in the next step, we could also sell a bit of spot here. Otherwise, we had a really long consolidation here. Now, this pump is a bit reminiscent of gold, but alright. Quantum technology is still very immature, I have to say at this point, plus it carries a very, very high risk. Otherwise, that's it from my side. I wish you all a great start to the week. Feel free to write what you think about this week. What do you think about the CPI data? Do you think it's a positive decision or not? Write it down below, and otherwise leave a like, subscribe, and join the Telegram group. We'll definitely hear from each other again tomorrow morning for another update video. Until then, ciao ciao, and as always, stay crypto.